Good morning. Thank you all for being here. It is an honor to be able to share all that God has done and what He's been working on in my life and through my life in the DR in the past 2 years. So for those of you that don't know, I was in the Dominican Republic for the last 2 years of my life, working with Students International. And so they have a lot of different opportunities for people to serve down in the DR. I went through the Global Bridge program. It was a 2-year program where I did online classes, and I was also working full-time in the ministry sites that they have down there. So I was in Santiago for the first year, which is the second biggest city in the DR, and we were kind of in the outskirts and the poverty-stricken areas around that. And then my second year, just this past August to May, I was in Jarabacoa, which is a smaller town, and it's more in the mountains, better weather. And I finished my associate's degree online, and I worked at a different site. So I was in Genesis, the special education site. Some of you may know that from when Mike and Karen Unternair were full-time staff in the DR, and they helped lead that school. And it was just such a blessing to be there. And I had never had a lot of teaching experience, but it was always something that I was interested in. And being there in the schools every day, I was an assistant teacher with the kindergarten and preschool developmental level class. And it was just so much fun. And I feel like God really put that passion in my heart for teaching, and I learned so much from the teachers and from the kids. And then this summer, I stayed on as summer staff, which is another program that SI does that it's just for 3 months, and we work in the sites as well as with teams that come down. So we'll have outreaches from churches or from colleges that will bring a group of 20 or 30 people down and help us out for 2 weeks. So that's actually how I found out about SI and Global Bridge, and so it was really cool to see that come full circle and have the privilege of leading those teams and encouraging all of these young people as they gave up 2 weeks of their summer to come down and to serve the Lord and to just have that amazing experience that you can have in the DR. So one of the biggest things that was something that I learned through and learned a lot about the Lord from was community. I think relationships in general are just something that I learned were the most important part of life. And then especially living in a house of a bunch of girls that were there doing the same thing, and in a community of people that love Jesus and just want to serve him with their whole lives. And just being with the Students International staff and with the people that I lived with and with my homestay family. And it was just a welcoming, encouraging group, and we shared our lives with each other. And that is something that I will never take for granted. And I grew so much as a person and as a follower of Jesus. So my homestay family, I lived with for a month this past year in Jarabacoa. So we had been living in an apartment with the girls that were in the Global Bridge program, and then we all split up and went to different families. And that was probably one of the best months of my time. I got to just do life with a Dominican family, and by the second week, I think they started calling me their hija americana, which is their American daughter, or hija gringa. And so they just made me feel so welcome, and I got to live like a Dominican, and I got to really see these different parts of culture that you don't get if you don't live day in and day out in a house with a family like that. And so actually, I lived with them for a month, and we had a sad last parting day at the end of that month. And then I actually went and visited them probably every other week until I left this past August. So that was a huge blessing and support for me, and just so beautiful to be able to connect with people that a year before then I wouldn't have been able to even talk to. And so that was just such a testimony to God's love and his faithfulness in my life. Something about community is that it is probably one of the most humbling and exposing things that you can be a part of. And I really felt that, especially in the first year and a half, just having to lay down my pride over and over again, having to learn to be selfless and put others' needs before my own, and to just be a more loving person. Something that I have a family and I love them, but it's just different when you have to choose them and you didn't grow up with them, and there's just so many differences, and we were all going through so many different things, and I just thank God every day for the people that he placed in my life during that time, even if it was hard and even if there were times when I really didn't want to keep loving them or taking care of them. But we kept searching and seeking the Lord, and we kept praying for each other even when we weren't even talking to each other. And it was just a beautiful way that God redeemed the things that we were going through and used it for good. And the girls that I lived with, we ended up being really close, and I'm so grateful for them, and I still am in contact with them. The Lord worked in me through community, and he also worked in me through we had a Bible study every week that we would get a group of people together from SI staff and from the girls in Global Bridge, and then in summer staff over the summer, and just talk about the Word and the Lord and our lives. And one of the key verses for me in especially the first semester of this past year in the fall was Psalm 119. We went through the whole chapter in detail, and some of the verses that really stuck out to me were verses 1 through 2 and verse 24 that say, "Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are those who keep his testimonies and who seek him with their whole heart. Your testimonies are my delight. They are my counselors." Those verses are so beautiful, and they mean so much more to me now than they did before my experience in the DR. And I had never realized how much I desired to be independent and to do what I wanted and then to follow Jesus when I felt like it. And the idea that submitting to him and living under his law and under his design for my life, realizing that that was where life was truly found, was such a freeing thing. And when I began to live in that and to take God at his word and to do what he wanted me to and not what I wanted to, I was blessed through that. And so that is something that I would encourage the people around me to do, and what I still struggle to do, but I try every day. Something that I struggled with in the past 2 years was trying to talk about how amazing this experience was and how good God is, and just I focused a lot on all the good things, and I didn't realize until this past year that there were a lot of things that weren't very good, and it was hard for me to realize that and to be honest about it. But when I was, a lot of things were able to change, and I was able to see more clearly what the Lord did and how he had worked through me and through the people around me. So I think the hardest part was really that learning that ministry and long-term ministry just takes so much time, and it takes so much patience and faithfulness. And for the first year that I was in the DR, I couldn't really talk to Dominicans unless they knew English, and I didn't know any of the people that I was living with, and I didn't really know what I was doing in sites. And there was just so many new things that were exciting and fun, and I was growing through, but also there was a lot of time of just loneliness and of feeling like I wasn't doing anything or making any difference. Which now I'm up here just talking to the church about how I didn't do anything and it was a terrible time. No, but I think I want to be honest about that, because it wasn't until December of this past year when I could look back on that and see how far God has brought me, and that now I know Spanish. I mean, fluent is a big word, but I can talk with people, I can make friends, I have relationships with people, and those are the most important thing to me, and it was just so much more life-giving. I knew what I was doing. I was more confident in my purpose there, and the Lord showed me just all of the blessings that after all of this time of working and praying for these things, I could look back and see, like, I have that now. And it was just a really beautiful thing to feel at home there finally in this past year and feel like I had a place there and a purpose, and that I was known and loved by people around me, and I had made connections that are going to be really long-lasting. So some ways that God worked through me and through my site leaders. In my classroom in Genesis, the special education school, and in the tutoring site this summer with Carolina, my site leader, we always had so much fun, but I got to see their heart, my site leader's hearts for the kids and for the mission of what they were doing, and just working day in and day out off of people's donations and off of fundraising to raise up kids that know Jesus and that are educated. Education is a hard thing in the Dominican Republic, and it's often something that's overlooked, and there's a lot of not great schools. And so one of SI's missions through the special education school and through the tutoring site was to come alongside these kids, as well as making connections with their families, and to support them in growing and in learning and in learning about Jesus. And so I got to watch the kids grow and learn. I got to make friends with them, and I watched them learn how to read and learn how to become contributing citizens of the world around them. And it was just a really amazing thing to watch the students that I had grow and learn. I had the opportunity to explain the gospel of Christ to these kids. I had the opportunity to memorize verses with them. And yeah, I think that is something that they will have a part of their foundation and their roots for the rest of their lives. And that's an amazing thing. Also, a way that God worked through me and through the people around me was through the teams that we had this summer. So primarily before that, our ministry was towards the people in communities, the people that often were from lower incomes and Dominicans, and just really pouring into that and making relationships in that. And then this summer was a little different because we were still going to sites, but we also had teams come, and we were, as summer staff, were leaders of those teams. And so we would spend hours and hours and hours every day with these people. They would come from high school, college, any different place in their lives and in their faith, and we just got to come alongside them and show them and talk about what the Lord's doing in the DR. And it was so amazing to have that energy and that love for coming in and just helping wherever they were needed. And I think I grew a lot in my leadership abilities during this past summer, and being able to pray over people and to encourage them in whatever they were going through, and to show them, it was just really cool to be able to show them what SI does and what their heart is all about, and to have so many people come and just support that. So those were the two main ministries over the past 2 years, and there were beautiful things and hard things about both of them. And yeah, so one of the best parts of these last 2 years, and I kind of touched on it already, was that point of looking back and realizing how far I'd come and how far the Lord had brought me. And I got to read this verse in Psalms that really just felt so perfect for what I was going through. And it's from Psalm 126, and it says, "The Lord has done great things for us. We are glad. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negeb. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him." And being able to look around and see my friends and these people that had become like my family, and to have the privilege of going out into the communities every day and speak with people and share the hope of Jesus with people, and just be loved and love those around me, as well as finish my associate's degree that I'd worked so hard for, and all of these things that I had been putting work into, and finally was able to see the joy and the blessing that came out of that. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned from that was that I could feel at home in that place, and having the assurance that I can feel at home wherever I am, because my home is in the Lord, and it's not in any place on earth. And he's my shepherd, and he takes care of me and provides for my needs. So yeah, there were still so many challenges, and living as an outsider in a different place will always be a humbling and very exhausting thing. But I'm reminded over and over how beautiful it was, and in many, many ways, my world and my heart have been expanded, and my eyes have been opened. And in the message, one of the verses in the psalm I just read calls it armloads of blessing, and I think that's a really good way to put it. So, I want this. I don't want to come up here and give a speech. I really prefer conversations. So I hope that you guys were encouraged, or just got something out of this and were blessed by something the Lord said to you through me. And I also would really encourage questions and further conversation about it. To close, I want to say thank you to all of you, because I always had a church family to come home to, and I always have people texting me and supporting me, and you guys, and supporting me financially too. I couldn't have done this without you, sure. So you guys mean a lot to me. And also, if anyone's interested in financially supporting or just prayerfully supporting any of my site leaders from the past 2 years, I would be so grateful for that. And if anyone's interested in doing any of the things or being an intern in the DR with SI, please talk to me. So.
So why don't we go ahead and just open it up for a time of questions, and hear a little bit more from Lindsay in specific areas that you would like to know about.
Come on.
What was your favorite experience or memory with your host family in the DR?
I think my favorite experience with them was, one of my host sisters, her name was Maria Stephanie. She was pregnant when I met her, and she had been married to her husband for 4 or 5 years. They're amazing people. And when she was planning to, her due date was like right after I left for Christmas break. And so I was like sad, but I'll be able to see them in January. Like, it's okay. But she actually was early, and I got to go over and visit them and their new baby, my new nephew, one of the first days that he was born. And I just got to sit with the family and be a part of that really special moment. And so that is my favorite memory.
So while other people are thinking about it, I'll have one. So give us, this is maybe not a question, but more just a request. Give us like one or two names of people, specific people that, you know, we can go and put on our prayer lists and continue to pray for on a regular basis.
Yes. So, these are some of my kids from this summer that I got to teach and build relationships with. But the leader of that site is Carolina. It's spelled like Carolina. And she is still raising funds to be able to support herself and her family. Pray for that, and pray for her children as well. She has kids that are 6 and 5, and just that they would grow in their knowledge and in their love for the Lord. Also, my site leaders at Genesis were Renee Helmkamp, as some of you may know her. She's from around here. Her and Daniel, also a guy from Michigan, and Maribel. And they are all amazing, and they all work really, really hard. So I think that Maribel is still fundraising to reach her goal for the, they have a whatever. So pray for those schools and also for their site leaders, because they have great community and people around them, but they always need more prayer and support. And what they do is a really vulnerable place, and a place that the devil can come in and attack. So just pray for their strength and for their support financially as well.
What other questions would you have for Lindsay?
I have a two-parter. What was the living conditions like for the children, and also what was the weather like?
Okay, good questions. The living conditions for the children. So in Jarabacoa, the center of town is actually a pretty, it can be a little touristy because there's a lot of really beautiful mountains and waterfalls. So the center of town is, they have grocery stores, and they have people that are not necessarily in poverty, but we work in a lot of the areas that are just like 2, 5, 10 minutes away from that are, some of the kids have dirt floors and 2-room houses, and some of the kids have coffee and nothing else in the morning for breakfast, which another ministry that we have with our tutoring site is that we provide breakfast in the morning for the kids. It's also the area, El Callejon, that we had been working in was really hit hard with parents addicted to drugs and parents that don't live together. And the kid has multiple siblings through multiple different moms or dads. So a lot of broken families and a lot of lack of nutritious food and clean water. So pray for those kids as well. Oh, the weather. So in Jarabacoa, it's up in the mountains a little more, so it does get cooler at night, thank goodness. But it is a very humid, very warm climate. So often like 90, 95 degrees in the day and with a lot of humidity. And then in the night, it would get a little cooler. And the winter is a little cooler just in general, but nothing below 60. Lindsay? Yes. Yeah. So, yes, the island of Hispaniola is separated into about 1/3 of it is Haiti and about 2/3 of it is the DR. And as you guys probably know, Haiti is a very, very impoverished and lack of resources country. And so there's a lot of Haitians that try to escape to the DR. That there's also a lot of racism and discrimination against that. So we had a lot of Haitians like in our schools and in just the communities around us, but they often had less. They were less fortunate and less like worse living conditions, and took the lower paying jobs. And we would have immigration trucks that would go around and literally just find people off the streets, and if they didn't have their papers, they would take them to Haiti. So it was a really, really hard and sad part of the DR.
Lindsay, we know that God works through our many experiences to prepare us for what's next. So what would you say in your past 2 years that God has used to prepare you for where you are now? Because I think that's also in a school, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you for asking that. I was going to say something about that. But yes, I, already in December of last year, of 2021, I was thinking about, okay, where's the Lord taking me after I'm done with this? Because my time, I'd been planning on my time being up in May. That's when the Global Bridge program ended. And then in March, I decided to extend it until August. So I asked around. I had really loved teaching at Genesis and then at El Callejon in the tutoring site. And it felt like something I wanted to try out in the States and just see what it's like, see what I can do. So I asked around. I actually asked Connie because she has some connections. And there's a lot of teachers at Shore, and they've all been really amazing and supportive. And I found an open position at Goshen Community Schools, and there was one opening for an English language paraprofessional, which is what I was interested in because I didn't have a teacher's license and I didn't have a 4-year degree, but I could become a para, which is kind of like an assistant or a helper in the classes. So I signed up, and I didn't hear back for like 2 months. And I was like, might just be working at the coffee shop when I come back, but which is not a bad thing, Levi. and I was just praying about it, and the opening was for the intermediate school, which I was kind of hoping for the younger kids because when I was at Genesis, I was working with pre-K and kindergarten, first grade level ages, and I had loved it. But the intermediate school was 5th grade, so I was like, well, this is all I got. I really want to work with something that was English language where I could help kids that were from other places and from those different cultures and coming and trying to learn English. And so I got an interview then in May, and they accepted me on the spot, or they offered me the job on the spot. So, and then that summer I worked with that age group, like 5th grade is what I work with now in Goshen Intermediate as an EL para. And this whole summer I was working with kids that were around that age, and it was just a really beautiful way that God prepared me for that age of kids and this line of work. And so after this school year, I am tentatively planning on doing another year at Goshen Intermediate. I really don't know if I will be called back to the DR or back to overseas missions, or if I'll be staying here. So, yeah, and I think God has shaped me and changed me in a lot of beautiful ways besides work, but that is where I'm at with that.
Hey, Linz.
Hey, Anna.
I'm sure the transition to go down to the DR was probably really hard. And then you mentioned how you felt like it was such a family. So I'm guessing the transition coming back was even harder. So how is your heart doing now, being back, and maybe still going through a little bit of a cultural shock?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's funny, I was listening to my video a little bit that I spoke about last year, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I just was very grateful to be back in Indiana for the summer, and I was just really enjoying it, and I feel like it was a complete 180 this year. I came back, and not that I dislike Indiana, and I love my church family, and I love my family, but it was such a life of purpose, and there's a lot of really great things that come out of being in a ministry and surrounded by people that love Jesus and want to follow him and want to encourage me to follow him as well as I can. And so I think that part of it, and also the adventure of being in a different place and using my second language, and the challenge of making new friends that I just loved. And so coming back, it was like, oh, all of these people already know me, and I know them, and I have for years and years and years. And I don't know, I miss so much my friends that I shared my last 2 years of my life with in the DR, and I miss the food, and it has been a weird transition, but I think it has been, the thing that has gotten me through it is knowing that I am called to be with my family right now. I'm called to be in my hometown right now, and reconnect and keep building those relationships. So in a lot of ways, it's been really awesome to see how the Lord has moved, even in places that feel more ordinary. But it has been hard.
Well, since you were a pizza girl when you left and loved pizza, and you just got done saying that you enjoyed the food, can you elaborate on that?
I can. So we had, the main dish that we had for lunch almost every day was white rice and beans and chicken, and sometimes salad. Salad's never my main favorite part, but I loved, we would have tostones, which were fried and mashed plantains, and we would have fresh fruit all the time. Oh my goodness, mangoes and plantains and bananas and dragon fruit and papaya. I'm not a big fan of papaya, but yeah, avocados. Oh my gosh. So I do. I really grew to love the food and the importance of eating food with people every day. So it was really fun.
I was thinking, have you seen seeds sprout out from you being witness? I know that in the future you're probably going to see a lot, maybe younger ladies going to, whether it's Dominican Republic, Mexico, China, whatever. But have you seen any seeds yet? Is it too early?
I think that I have. Especially in the girls that I lived with, a lot of them had a lot of family dysfunction and trauma that we all kind of worked through together. And I think just being able to be a faithful friend to them and hearing things that they'll say now about what that meant to them has been huge. So those relationships, and I also got to see and visit the people that I worked with the first year during this past year. And I don't know if I made a huge difference in their lives, but I know that they remembered me and they told me that they missed me, and that was enough.
All right. Well, Lindsay, thank you for sharing. Let's go ahead and give Lindsay a round of applause. So, Lindsay, thank you for sharing. Thank you for how God has worked through you and how you were open to that. So I'm just going to close in a word of prayer, and then you all will be dismissed. Heavenly Father, thank you again for Lindsay and the gifts that you have given to her and how she has committed to using those. Lord, we just ask that you continue to pave this path that you have for her, whether that's here in northern Indiana or whether that's somewhere else in the world. So, Lord, we know that she is simply seeking to follow your plan. And so, Lord, we just ask that you give her clarity in that and that she would seek to build those relationships wherever she's at, as they are so important. In Jesus' name, amen. Go in peace.